Welcome to the H.E.R podcast with Kristen Sampson, offering a message of hope, encouragement, and reflection with special guests.
Welcome to the H.E.R podcast, where the goal is to help bring hope, encouragement, and to be able to reflect on where you are walking with God in your life today. Today, we're going to be discussing women being enough. I'm your host, Kristen Sampson. Today, we have a special guest, Lea Morgan. Hey, Lea.
Hey.
So, when it comes to family roles, many of us have grown up surrounded by expectations shaped by scripture, culture, and our church teachings. But as society evolves and women take on new responsibilities and opportunities, how can Christian families balance these shifts with the values that they hold dear? And how do we, as women of faith, find our worth, voice, and balance in the family of unity? So, in today's episode, this is what we're going to be talking about. We're going to explore biblical teachings that have influenced family roles for generations and consider how modern Christian families navigate these delicate situations and balance them. So, um, whether you're a wife, a mother, a daughter, or simply just someone looking to understand a place in your family through the lens of Christianity, this conversation is going to be for you. Together, we'll discover how to honor our spiritual path while embracing the unique ways we can contribute, lead, and love within our families. All right, let's dive in, Miss Lea.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, so today we, like I said, special guest, Miss Lea. Lea, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I am married to Trey. He is a full-time minister. We live here in Lubbock, Texas. We are working with the Sunset Church of Christ here in Lubbock. We just recently transitioned to Lubbock from Childress, where we were for 21 years. And so going through some adjustments, but it's been good. All four of our grown sons live here. Our oldest two are married, and we have two grandchildren and one on the way. So
Congratulations.
yes, so we're all right here in Lubbock, and that is just we're living the dream. We look down the pew every Sunday morning, and our whole family is sitting with us. And so what more could you ask? It's like
Absolutely.
the fruits of our labor have come to fruition. We travel about once a month
Okay.
doing marriage workshops,
Absolutely.
and sometimes a little more than one a month, but that's kind of where we try to just do one a month since we're in full-time ministry. We don't want to take away from that ministry,
Mhm.
but we are heavily involved in marriage ministry, not only with our traveling, but we do a bi-monthly podcast, Strong Marriage Podcast, and we have a social media presence on Facebook and Instagram. And so we've written 3 books, and you can find all of that at treyandlea.com, TREYANDLEA.com. And that will just take you to our landing page where you can find our books and our podcast and our workshop schedule so you can see if we're in your area. Yeah,
Highly recommend checking them out, ladies. Highly recommend them. We've been to several because we love we love hearing them. They do a great job, and we will post the link down below. So if you don't remember or forget or just want to click, that will be down provided below too. So
good.
yeah, well, that and this is kind of how we met you guys, I think, wasn't it?
I think so. I think so.
But through one of those workshops and have just gained the utmost respect for you guys. And they just put it out so plainly and in a fun way. And it's really encouraging. It is, I don't know, it's something if you have not been, you definitely need to go to one of the workshops. Now you've got a cruise one coming up, don't you?
We do. We have an Alaskan cruise coming up in July of 2025. So give you some time to save up and to plan. But those are fun. We do that cruise with Wayne and Tammy Roberts,
Yes.
who do the His Shoes, Her Shoes marriage workshops, and they're phenomenal.
We
And so
are.
we team up with them, and we each take turns presenting on the days that we're at sea. And then we give couples loads of time to just spend together and have fun and enjoy the cruise. So that's a lot of fun. If you have been thinking, hey, we've been wanting to go on an Alaskan cruise, what better one to go on than one that's going to strengthen your marriage at the same time?
Absolutely. And if it goes the other way, you can maybe look like an accident over
Right.
planning. I'm
Right.
just kidding. All right, Miss Lee. Okay, we're going to talk about now, we're going to dive in
Okay.
women's roles. So, on
Okay.
that note with Ocean, um, women's roles today in the family compared to the examples as we've grown up, the things that what cultivated you? What experience did you have growing up? What was your family like?
My family was, you're probably pretty traditional family. My mom stayed home for the most part.
Mhm.
She did not work outside the home. If she did, they were like part time. She would do things like that she enjoyed doing. Like she worked at a frame shop for a little bit, and she worked at kind of like an art gallery type thing. It was always part time where she could be home most of the time. Um, they were foster parents for a while. So when I was very, very young, I can remember having some foster babies in the house and some things like that. But um, it was very traditional. Like she did the cooking, she took care of all of the domestic things, and Dad worked, and he'd come home, and I, just remember him being sitting in his chair and drinking his coffee after we got home from work, and
Oh,
yeah, very traditional.
okay. Well, I did not grow up traditional.
Mhm.
So my biological father and mother, they both members of the church, and he struggled. He just really did. And so at 6 years old, my parents got a divorce, and so my mom had to be the provider and the nurturer. All things. She had to wear multiple hats, and
Superhero. She was a superhero.
she was, and, she gave it her all, that is for
Mhm.
sure, and then ended up, getting married and, to another great guy. Sadly, he was not religious. He had had some upbringing that had caused him to struggle with that in those areas, and, so I grew up, where both parents worked full time outside the home. We did the whole daycare thing. And so it really gave me a different perspective than what it has given you, with your growing up. And so that had, we'll get into this in a little bit, but that growing up had definitely cultivated the way I thought
Mhm.
and how I thought marriages were supposed to work, and
Yeah.
sadly to say that they are not together anymore either, and, it's hard. It
Right.
is hard,
Right.
and that's a big reason why I'm doing these podcasts is to help
Mhm.
encourage and, to help people realize that, we all come from different backgrounds,
Mhm.
and, but, you know, we can learn from those,
Right.
you don't have to right or wrong, we don't have to do it the way our parents did it. We can learn from those
Mhm.
things, benefit from those things, but then also uh, make things better in some
Yes,
way.
absolutely. I agree 100%. We can we go into marriages with expectations, and sometimes we expect our marriage to look just like, what we had growing up. But then like you said, if it wasn't always a positive experience, you can say, "Hey, I'm going to do everything I can to make my family look different." And so, yeah, you can
Yeah,
learn from the good and the bad.
absolutely. And I know it was a struggle when Kim and I first got married. So he grew up with a traditional background like you guys.
Mhm.
And, his dad was even a preacher. So that
Mhm.
even upped it a little bit more too. And so, uh, very conservative family.
Yeah.
And so when we got married, that was one of the things we did not truly grasp and communicate. And so we struggled for a few years of what was expected of each other's roles because, we both were working. We didn't have kids yet. And so we were both working. And then he expected me still to do all the honeydew things, at home and the cooking and the cleaning, the laundry while he just
Mhm.
relaxed. And I'm like, well, hold up.
Right?
This
Working
ain't gonna
together.
work. My mama didn't do that,
Yeah.
my dad didn't do that, like, they worked together
Yes.
and so communicating that,
Right.
was a big, it took us a little while. We're finally after 20, almost 23 years, we're finally
Mhm.
there. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
but it did take a little while. But okay, so w- today's world is so different just in the last, 20 years and 40 years and
Yeah.
so on. And it is so much in our faces. I feel like, especially myself, feels like, I still have kids at home.
Mm.
So trying to balance that, what does God expect? What does the world expect? And then, okay, what's reality?
Mhm.
And, how does that look for Caleb and I and our kids? And so I've been blessed for many years to be able to be at stay at home. Um, but money was tight, for sure. And then we moved just recently in the last 3 years. Then I started working a full-time job, and I realized, whoa, this is hard. I
Yeah.
I don't know how my mom did it.
Yeah.
I don't know how mothers do that. And in balancing, all the things, it
Right.
is like,
And you can't do everything that
mm-mm.
you were doing, some things you have to let go, and that's probably hard to figure out what do I have to let go, and you probably can't volunteer for as many things, and maybe be you can't be as involved in some of your kids' activities as you'd like to be when you're working full time and still trying to run your home.
Yeah, yeah. Because, I mean, it is hard, and then, finding that balance,
Mhm.
what's gonna work for you and your family because, each family has different needs too, and yeah, just so much going on, and it was hard, and so I had to take a step back and, looking at scriptures and just, like, reminding myself, "Okay, I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know what to do, where to go, what to," you know, because when, Caleb we put our whole heart into things. Like,
Mhm.
if I'm a homemaker, I'm putting my whole heart into that, and so when I was working full time, I put my whole heart into that, and you can't do that when you have kids, and I'm
Right.
like, "Ah, I need
Yeah.
to I need to figure out a balance here," and it is so hard to balance, those things, but it is so common for today.
It is. I don't know what the statistics are. That would have been an interesting thing for us to look up.
Yeah,
How many women work outside the home as opposed to stay at home moms. But I would say that the number of women that work outside the home is probably higher than stay at home moms. Definitely higher than it was 20 years ago for sure.
absolutely. Well, and then, of course, the way the economy and everything has been
Yes.
the last several years, it's been hard. So people who would like to have stayed home had to get a job just
Mhm.
to provide, food and
Yes.
electricity. So,
Mhm.
we're definitely living in different times for sure, and so it I don't know, that's why we're doing this,
Mhm.
it's like it's learning what's okay and how to navigate through this, and
Yeah.
so, um, what are, let's see, I had some questions here, um, so what, nurturing spiritual growth in
Yeah.
the family. How can women lead and support spiritual growth within the family while not neglecting their own needs?
So I think the big thing there for me is intentionality. We have to be intentional and have a plan, and you can't just think, well, I'll get my needs met with. If you don't have a plan, you're just, I don't know, just floundering around.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
we make time for the things that are important to us. I
mhm,
mean, that's just bottom line. If there's a show we love to watch, we're gonna make time to watch it. If we love to read, we're gonna make time to read. Uh,
mhm.
you know, I like to eat. I always make time to eat lunch every day.
Yeah, yeah,
We're gonna make time to do things that are important to us. And I
coffee
think
and
that,
wine.
yeah, I mean that's the same. So um I hear plenty of people, and I was guilty of saying, "Well, I don't have time to read my Bible."
Mhm,
Well, it wasn't important to me, and that's why. So if it's important, we're gonna figure out when we're gonna get that done, and it's
mhm.
gonna look different. I finally realized I'm not a morning person. I mean, I didn't finally realize. I knew I was not a morning person, but I finally realized I could have my quiet time at night. after I put my kids to bed, and that worked better for me.
Yeah.
So I would do, I would do my Bible studies and all of that kind of stuff at night after I put them to bed. And that was where I got my quiet time and, fed myself. So if you're a morning person, do it in the morning. If, you know,
Mhm.
maybe you need to listen to something on your way to work. If you have a little bit of a commute, 20, 30 minutes, uh, we have so many things available to us now. You can listen to the Bible on your device. And so just find what works for you so you're getting yourself fed.
Absolutely. And they've got, you know, ear pods and
Mhm.
headsets that, we can have it on during the day, even,
Yeah.
have the Bible read to you. There's so many different reading apps and podcasts and different things we can even just listen to throughout the day to help encourage us. That's what I ended up having to do
Mhm.
because I was so tired in the morning. I just wanted my coffee. I couldn't read. I couldn't think.
Mhm.
I couldn't
Mhm.
focus. And then by the time my kids were early risers, and
Yeah.
so it was hard for me to have it in the morning. Well, then by the time the evening came, I was so tired,
Yeah.
so tired. I'm like, I ended up having to do mine kind of at random times during the day. And for a while, I felt kind of weird doing that. But then I realized, no, my kids need to see me doing
Mhm.
this. They need to know I'm opening up my word, the word and reading my Bible.
Mhm.
And that's not a bad thing. It's probably a great thing,
Yes.
for them to see that it's not just Sunday, Wednesdays, that it's, we're studying throughout the week too. We gotta, but we for a while we get really good about doing Bible studies in the evenings as a family,
Mhm.
but it is so hard to keep that routine. I will say that
Yes.
because jobs and now just Caleb's work. I'm staying home now, so it makes it a little bit easier because then I can have more things prepared and ready and taken care of,
Mhm.
and a little bit more energy than I did before too. Because thankfully, all my kids now are in school, so I get some quiet time during the day, which
Mhm.
that was an adjustment too. Because 'cause I'm very much a people person, and
Yes.
so and not a preacher's wife anymore. We've left that full time, and so this whole new world for me has been a huge adjustment with feeling like being enough.
Mhm.
And, as a preacher's wife, you get a little, your responsibilities,
Right.
like they're almost expected.
Yes.
Yeah. They're
Yeah.
there, whether you want to do them or not, they're there. And
Right.
so not being a preacher's wife, I was like, oh my, what can I do? What am I
Yeah.
allowed to do?
Yeah.
And so I struggled, but thankfully I've been able to be a part of a ladies group, a heritage, helping with it. And so that's
Yeah.
been a nice outlet for me. And so hopefully they let me stay on it while while I'm
Mhm.
not working there. But that's been really good. And we finally,
Mhm.
placed membership. And so now I'm getting my house clean so I can have them over pretty soon. And so that's given me motivation to get my house clean. And so finally, after 3 years of not feeling enough, trying to figure out that balance, it's been interesting, I'll say.
Mhm.
I'm learning a lot about who I am and where my heart is on
Mhm.
things. Because,
Mhm.
like we were saying, as a preacher's wife, like, what your roles are, and you can choose whether your heart's in it or it's not.
Mhm.
So when you don't have to do something, it makes you reflect back on, okay, was I doing those things because I was the preacher's wife, or was
Right.
I doing those things because my heart was truly in it? And I
Mhm.
know our hearts are not always in everything that we do. We're human. Um, but the mindset,
Right.
makes a difference.
It does. And I've kind of been a little bit there with our transition. We were in a small town and had a congregation of about 400,
Mhm.
and now we're in a city and our congregation is about 1400. And you can just imagine all of the ministries and things that are going on all the time, and there is no possible way I could be involved in all of them. In a smaller congregation, you kind of can have your hand a little bit in everything, um, but here definitely not. And I've had to, try to figure out, okay, what do I want to be involved in, and and I've had to realize I can't spread myself so thin that I'm not doing a good job at the things that I really want to be involved in, like teaching children's Bible classes and those kinds of things. So,
Yeah.
yeah, you do have to kind of figure out, where you can best serve to also fill yourself up.
Yeah. Absolutely. So how did you I mean, did you feel that all those things were done, or did you have a place where you could kinda walk into and help with? Because like, at the congregation that I'm at first it was like, it's a good sized congregation. These women are so active.
Mhm,
Everybody's involved. It's not just a preacher wife show. It's
mhm,
amazing. It's like
yeah,
godly women. This is great. And so it's like, okay, well, where do I fit in? Like,
right,
how can I use my talent? And so
yes,
how did that look for you? Because I mean, that's a bigger congregation. So
yeah. It's, everything is a well-oiled machine and the ministries are all, up and running. And so, um, I just I've always been involved in teaching children's Bible classes. I
mm,
like to teach, and that was sort of a place where that was a need. Where it's
absolutely.
always people
That's
are
always needed
always
everywhere.
everywhere. Because I thought, oh man, they probably just have so many people volunteering to teach Bible classes in such a big church, and that is, they still struggle. They still struggle to find enough teachers.
Yes. Yeah,
And fill-ins and all of the things, and so I kind of just fell into that naturally, and it is, I do feel needed there because it's an area where they're always looking for more help.
absolutely.
Mhm,
Absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely I haven't dived into that yet. Still slowly making this transition of not working full
mhm,
time and trying to get the house in order, but I'm hoping to get back into teaching little
mhm,
kids again because that is fun. It's so rewarding to see them learn
mhm.
and their reactions in class are so
Yes,
priceless.
it is. It is. I taught toddlers for about 12 years, and so I've transitioned to first graders, and it's kept me a little more on my toes. With toddlers, there's not a lot of studying going on. You
Right.
have your little Bible class routine, but with
Yeah,
first graders, you got to be prepared to answer some questions that they're going to ask, and so um, yeah, it's been good
yeah,
for me to do a little more, Bible studying and being prepared for them. So it's
absolutely.
been fun.
And that's one of the reasons why I love teaching was because then I actually will get more out of it if you teach it
Mhm.
than just sitting in a class and getting it. Like, you get stuff from class,
Right.
but you definitely are gonna get something out of, studying before you teach a class,
Exactly.
for sure.
Absolutely. We get more out of it than whoever's teaching always gets more out of it than the listeners.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, but speaking of that too, like, kids, I heard this, from our preacher a couple weeks ago. And it just has stuck in my mind differently, and I know I've heard it, but the way he put it was, "The children that we have are not ours. They're
Mhm.
God's,
Mhm.
and we're supposed to be training them
Mhm.
and teaching them about God." And that, yeah, it's great that we have all these things going on in the world and, all these things around us, but we can't let those things be our focus.
Right.
That our focus should be on teaching them about their heavenly Father
Mhm.
and teaching them how to be Christians one day and
Absolutely.
how that looks, and so,
It's a
you know
sobering thought. He's given us a gift, and one of these days we're gonna have to present it back to him, and how, you know yeah, it is a sobering thought.
it is, and, like, okay, so I have an 18-year-old, or 9 no, excuse me, 19, he was almost 20, and so when he graduated a couple years ago, I realized I had not mentally prepared myself that they were going to leave.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
you get so into the everyday teaching them and being with them and helping them, and you slowly, as they get older, they are more independent and they do things on their own, and that's great, and that's what you want. But then when they graduate, it's like, "Wait, hold up, you're leaving me?"
Mhm.
Like, I
Mhm.
was not and I felt guilty. Oh my I had so many emotions, and I'm sure there's other moms out there, maybe you even too, had that, like, "Wait, like, I want you to leave, because
Mhm.
then that means you're doing great, you're healthy, you're smart, you're being a productive, human, but at the same time, I haven't prepared myself for this,
Right. Right.
It
Yeah.
was hard. So by the second one, when he graduated the next year, I'm like, "Okay, yeah, this is a little bit easier this go around," and
Right.
seeing him starting to make adult decisions, I'm gonna tell you, I've kind of enjoyed saying, "I hear you, but I
Mhm.
can't make that choice for you."
Mhm.
It's a
Right.
little less in some ways, but at the same time, it's like, "Okay, how well did we do, Caleb?"
Mhm.
Like, how
Yeah.
well what all did we teach them everything that they need to know,
I know. And that's always gonna be, when they get ready to leave the nest, you're like, "Oh, but do they know did we teach them everything?" But, I'm telling you, ours are from 35 down to 23, and when you can watch them doing life and making good decisions, and it's just like, "Okay." They we did well or they turned out well in spite of us. But yeah, it's good.
No, I think being at home, having that balance, however that looks for,
Mhm.
your family, having that balance at home of you know that you only have so long,
Mhm.
and Lord willing, anything can happen. Um, but typically, 18, 19, 20 years you have with these kids that are God's blessings to us that we get to help um, teach them and mold them and prepare them for this world that's so crazy. Um, but we only have that short amount of time. And it seems like in the moment, especially when they're like toddlers, and you're
Mhm.
not sleeping much, it seems like forever, but
Mhm.
it really feels like a blink of an eye.
It
And
does.
I
When
definitely
it's
see it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I see it now with like the older three who are just all a year apart. And then 7 years later, we have our younger two. It's like two different families.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I feel it more. I feel the more urgency to make sure the younger two know more,
Yes.
biblically, and
And you're probably more intentional. Do you find yourself being more intentional with your younger 2?
I do. I
Uh-huh.
I do, and a little bit more patient and laid back
For
as
sure.
far as, like, "Okay, well, we're gonna work through this a little differently because like,
Yeah.
my older kids will be like, "You used to spank us for
Right.
that," and,
You learn
you used to."
you learn to pick your battles a little more,
Yeah.
like, is this really worth, the fight? So, yeah.
Yes, and, like, their perspective, and that was the other thing too I realized is that no matter what how good of a parent you think you are or think you're not, the things that you do and say and, the best that you give it your all,
Mhm.
they're gonna have their perspective. They're you know, because like, I was discussing with my mom a while back on how my perspective of growing up
Mhm.
and what I learned and my takeaways, and there were some times where she just, like, shook her head like, "How did you get that?" And I'm like, "Well,
Right.
I don't know, that was just my perspective,"
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
so I have to keep that in mind too because, like, they remember things we remember things
Mhm.
differently
Mhm.
than, our parents do, and so, like,
Mhm.
when my older ones will say something, I'm like, "I don't remember it being that way." But okay. I respect that to a degree. Um, another thing too that I'd heard just recently was, how important it is, especially us women, to be interruptible. I think that's like my new favorite word right now,
Oh, yeah.
being interruptible.
Uh-huh.
That, Jesus walked a very mission-minded life, and there was this plan, for him and goals, and, um, he had people stop him all the time
Mhm.
and beg and demand things of him and
Mhm.
confront him and tempt him, and he did it with such grace. He embraced that, and we have, so many examples in, the New Testament about, like the woman who was bleeding and grabbed his garment, and he stopped, and he took care of that
Mhm.
with such grace.
Mhm.
And, Zacchaeus, climbing the tree to see him, and the Lord stops and goes to his house and talks with him. And I to be a mom is fantastic. It's a reward. It's a blessing. Um, but to know that it's not going to be perfect, we're going to have those interruptible moments
Mhm.
where the kids get sick, the husband gets sick,
Mhm.
jobs are lost, you're having to move.
Mhm.
Um, so many different things,
Yeah.
but when we as women prepare our minds that we can have our plans,
Mhm.
we can have our dreams, our goals, our little checklist, going, but we got to be open and okay with those interruptible moments.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it may even be on a smaller scale. It may be on a day to day. You may think, well, I've got to get all the laundry done today. But,
Mhm.
maybe a child comes home from school and they've, had a little tiff with their friend and they're in a state and, that they need you worse than the laundry needs you. And so, yeah, that's a great
Absolutely.
point. Mhm.
Absolutely. And that's hard because, we want to, excuse me, us women, or at least I know for myself, I want to be all things to all people, and we can't.
Right.
It is so hard. It
Mhm.
is so hard. And so I know that when I heard that, I'm like, we do. We've got to, as women, I feel like we got to be better about those moments and be okay in those moments when those interruptible moments happen. And,
Yeah, I love that.
but okay, so what are some strengths, some ideas to help with your balancing out
Okay.
the,
Yeah. Practical ways we can draw strength. I think that if you could be a part of a Bible study group or something with like-minded people, maybe other moms that are sort of in your same walk, where you can bounce ideas off of them, you can draw strength from them. Um, I also think it's great to have a mentor that's maybe 10, 15, 20 years ahead of you in life, that's already been there and done that, where you can say, hey, I'm really struggling with with this, and you can go to them and say, how did you handle that with your husband, or how did you handle that in your family? And so I think for me those two things are just just priceless, having a mentor and then having a group that is walking the same walk as you.
absolutely. And I think that's why it's so important for older women. It says in the Bible, the older women are to train
Mhm.
the younger women. I mean, it's
Yeah.
okay to go to older women and
Yeah.
ask for that advice because they're supposed to be guiding us and helping us because we're not going to have all the answers.
Mhm.
I wished there was a book for parenting,
Yeah.
like do this, do that, don't do this,
Yeah.
There's a lot of great books out there to help
Right.
you. And of course we have the Bible, but
Mhm.
yeah, but oh, I just lost my train of thought.
Yeah, but for somebody that's, you know, been through that with their own children, maybe they have had rebellious children
Yes,
or, you know, whatever, one that got in trouble with something, and you can say, what do I do? Give me some wisdom, and they can share what worked for them or what didn't work. They could maybe the opposite.
absolutely.
Well, what you don't want to do is, don't handle it the way I handled it or whatever. So,
Yeah.
yeah, somebody that you can just go to
And
is
what's normal, because I think a lot of times where we do keep a lot of things to ourselves, we feel like, well, this has only happened to us,
mhm,
and we just get so, you know, narrow focused, I
right,
guess, and just think this, nobody's going to understand, nobody's going to get it. People are going to judge me, people are going to judge my kids.
mhm,
But I mean, there's nothing new.
mhm,
Somebody's gone through it. And
yes,
it's like you're saying, finding that mentor to kind of help you, even if they hadn't
mhm,
gone through it exactly like it, they've gone something close enough
mhm,
probably to help you
right,
through
yeah.
that.
And we have to get over that pride issue, kind of that you were talking about, because we do. We're like, well, this is embarrassing. Nobody else, they're going to judge us or think less of us or whatever. And if
Mhm.
would get past that pride issue and really, like if you can find that smaller group that you can trust to share some things like that with, be a little bit vulnerable. Um, you realize that, when we all let our guards down to a degree, we all struggle with things and we're not, none of us are perfect. So if we can drop the facade and be real with each other, we could all help each other walk a little straighter and narrower.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And feel less weighted down for
Mhm.
sure. Because I know
Mhm.
like with social media, I know I'm not doing that near as much on there,
Mhm.
like I used to be because you get on there and everybody wants to make their life look so wonderful.
Oh, yeah, you just see the perfect on there, and it's not realistic. So, and I hope, Trey and I have a pretty big social media presence, and we never want to come across as we have this awesome, perfect marriage, and we raised this wonderful family. I mean, we had our struggles and we had issues with our kids, and they had different things going on, and our marriage is no different than anybody else's. We still, fuss, and we still have to work through things, and yeah, I just, I don't ever want to come across as we've got it all together. So,
Absolutely, because it's easy to do. It's easy to think the grass is greener on the other
mhm,
side,
yeah,
but we're all imperfect people
yeah,
living in an imperfect world,
yes,
and there's always going to be ups and downs, mood swings, those interruptible moments that you
mhm,
just could not imagine, you weren't ready for, and, we get in our grumpy moods and don't always react the way we're supposed to,
yeah,
and, but the difference between having a Christ-centered marriage and family is being able to step back and analyze who you are and reflect on how you're acting and reacting and how you're
mhm,
handling things, and is this how God would want me to handle that?
yeah, for sure. That's why we need to, like you said, be filling ourselves up with good things because our attitude is going to spill over onto our family.
It
How,
does.
if we're stressed or worried or feeling negative or grouchy, whatever it is, that's going to spill over. And so we've got to be super careful with our attitude and make sure we're, filling our cup with good things.
Fake it till you make it.
Yes.
Yeah. And another thing, that saying, "If mama ain't happy, nobody's happy," or yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I don't buy that completely, but there is some truth in that, as in, if the mom handles things really well
Hmm.
or pretty good, we have a bigger, weight in that family than we realize
Yeah. We
without
pass
taking
through. Hmm.
yeah, without taking control. We don't have to be in control
Hmm.
of the everyday things, and teaching our kids that, your dad, if you have that husband and dad in that role, that, you know, he is the leader of this wonderful home that God
Hmm.
has given you, and that it's okay to
Hmm.
have that dad as that role and the wife come in and be that support and that helper, however
Absolutely.
that looks.
Hmm.
But, that in that, Adam was made first.
Hmm.
God's like, "You need a helpmate, a
Hmm.
helpmeet. I'm
Yeah.
gonna I'm gonna make someone to help you." So I heard this the other day that that Greek word is also used with the helpmate. Helpmate is I think that's the right word, but
Mhm.
the general concept is that's also the same Greek word that is used God helping Israel.
Yeah.
And I did not know that because,
Mhm.
there's so many women, especially this day and time, who think, the women's roles are, the biblical way is so degrading, but
Mhm.
it's not. It's so it's one, it's less stress, I'll be honest with you.
Yes.
So many women put too much stress on themselves trying to be in this world and like this world, but, if you let the husband be the true leader
Mhm.
and you step back and you just be that helpmate and help them and encourage them,
Mhm.
'cause it's hard to be angry and think negative about somebody when you're trying to encourage them. It is
Mhm.
it's hard, it's so hard, and I think y'all talk about that too in y'all's, podcast quite a bit of, You can't, you just can't do those things.
Yeah.
And so if you're encouraging them and you're trying to find the positive in things and be the most positive person you can, it's going to reflect on your husband
Hmm.
and it's going to reflect on your kids
Yeah.
in bigger ways than I had realized. And like just recently, being a stay at home mom, then working, and now being a stay at home mom again, I can see the difference in what that looks like. Now, I enjoyed working full time. Do not get me wrong. I
Right.
absolutely loved it. It
Yeah.
was so much easier
Yeah.
to get going and to do and talk and,
Yes.
and check, the check boxes that someone little kid ain't gonna come mess up,
Right.
it's done, it's done.
Yes.
And then so going back home and nobody's there and there's just mess all around. It was just like,
Hmm.
I've got to work on my perspective. I've got to work on my heart. I got to work so many things I've got to work on and
Yeah.
transition to a better Christian wife, a
Hmm.
better Christian mother, and be there because, like, we said a little bit ago, we only get this short amount of time to create them and mold them and shape them.
Hmm.
And if we are not home, who's doing it for us?
Yeah.
The world.
Yes.
Somebody's doing it because they're going to be learning. So, what I hope we get out of this is to balance what that looks like for your family. So, if you're married, to one, good communication, that's definitely key,
Hmm.
and what's expected and how you and your husband want things to run at your home. So, like at my house, now that I'm at home, I do a lot of the homekeeping things, and the guys do the outside stuff, and the kids
Yeah.
have chores. So, like,
The
communicating with.
more traditional role. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, more traditional role, and
Yeah.
then but if you both work outside the home, come to that communication and
Mhm.
teach your kids how to work together on that and
Yeah.
communicate, but still let your husband lead, still let him be because there's something special about that, and like I said, I did not grow up with that,
Mhm.
and so seeing the things I've seen over the last 20 years, it God gives us these rules, these instructions for a reason.
Yeah.
For a purpose.
Yes.
And us women need to find value as mothers, as wives, as daughters,
Mhm.
as friends in the way God has made us.
Right.
Because then we're going to shine so much brighter and so much better when we do it God's way.
Well, he gave us specific roles. I mean, he created women different than he created men. We're more emotional beings. We're more nurturing by nature. And, just there's a lot of things that women do instinctively
Mhm.
uh, for a reason, and that just comes into play with the way we raise our children. He made men to be different. And so I think that sometimes women do ourselves a disservice by trying to do and be everything that men are instead of embracing, you know, the feminine God-given roles that, the way he created us to be, and just, embrace that, hey, yes, we are nurturers. We are the ones that do that. We don't have to be the big strong, take all the stresses. I'm so thankful to have a partner that can be the leader in the family. Uh, Especially as a mom of four boys, when we had to have hard talks, it was like, well, you're the dad.
Exactly. Go talk to dad.
You're- uh,
That's right.
and I was thankful for that. I was very thankful for that because I didn't, you know, not that I wouldn't have, not that I would have not done it, but we felt like with him being the leader of the family, the head of the family, those were his discussions to have. So yeah,
It makes a difference.
it
It
does.
really does, and I've definitely have seen that recently more so than ever before, and I wanna encourage all women, young, middle, old, to embrace who God has, who God has made.
Yes.
We're all special. We are all made in his image. We're all made for a purpose,
Mhm.
and we are all made to be enough.
Yes.
And I think that's just so important that we just I wish I could go right on everybody's mirrors in their bathroom when they are getting ready, like, "You are enough."
Are enough.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Don't try to be the things that God didn't ever intend for you to be. Just be you.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I think we need to conclude here. This has been so wonderful. I'm so glad this worked out. I know we've tried several different times and we've had a lot of interruptible moments,
We had we had a lot of those. Yes, we did.
but it's okay. It's all
Yeah,
good.
we made it happen. We made it happen.
And I'm so thankful for you, Lee, and what you and your husband do, and such an encouragement you guys are, not only to me and Caleb, but all over the world because marriage is not easy. Being a woman definitely isn't easy because we do have all those emotions. So I want to encourage, everyone to, like we've said, seek out that mentor, communicate with your spouse, um, uh, at appropriate times,
Yeah.
and know that you only have those children for such a small amount of time,
Yeah.
and the biggest impact if you're not making an impact in their life, somebody else is.
Yeah.
So be that impact. Lee, what else do you got?
Just thinking about just remembering that you are enough. Sometimes women feel like, well, I'm not doing anything important, I'm not doing anything that matters. But by raising a godly family, I mean, that is the most important thing that you could be doing.
Abs
And, maybe you're not necessarily changing the world, but who knows what you might not be raising a child that can be a world changer, you know?
absolutely.
Um, I think of Hannah and Samuel, and she wanted that child so badly, and struggled with infertility, but God's timing. What He had a plan, and He needed Samuel for a certain time to be this wonderful prophet that ministered to so many people. And so I just think that we have to remember that our job as wives and mothers is to point our families to God, and then let God do his thing. And we just never know what our children are going to end up doing with their lives, and all of the good that they may end up doing for God
Absolutely, and that's
because
our
of the way
biggest.
we raised them. Yeah.
Absolutely, and that's hard. When you're going through all those moments, I hate to go back into this a little bit
Mhm.
more, but when you're raising those kids, it's hard to remember that. It's hard sometimes to even know and comprehend that because I know, like, for me, especially, like, I feel like, well, when I only had the 3 kids, I'm like, "This is a piece of cake." Like, I feel like I'm not doing enough. I mean, yeah, there was some crazy times, but to me, I love children. It was that was something that came natural to me, and I felt like,
Mhm.
"Well, I'm not being enough. I'm not doing enough. This is," but I had also other influences around me that were making me feel like I wasn't enough. I
Yeah.
had surrounded myself with people who, "You need to have a college degree.
Yeah.
You need to be, a doctor or,
Mhm.
XYZ," like, "You need to be this and that I had surrounded myself with people who did not appreciate or understand or comprehend the importance
Mhm.
of being a mom
Mhm.
is and how that is, like, the hardest job, the greatest reward. The reason we have these is to raise them and to impact. We only have this small window
Mhm.
to impact them and teach them about their heavenly Father, who that's our purpose here on earth is to get to heaven, and we get so sidetracked with the world stuff and trying to
Mhm.
better ourselves, and nothing wrong with any of those things, but it's just when you don't have God in front and center, that's when it can become a stumbling block
Right.
and be an issue, and
Yeah.
so it was hard for me because it was hard.
Yeah. So, yeah, I would just say, if you think you're not doing anything important, you are. I mean, raising your family is so important. And so don't ever think you're not enough, because that is just We need more godly families in this world who are, pointing their children to God. So you are quite enough.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And like I said, it is the hardest job out there,
it
and
is.
it's but yet the most rewarding job.
Absolutely. It absolutely is.
Well, Lee, I've really appreciated you joining and being on. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Yeah.
And thanks again for all that you do for the kingdom and for being a good example, and so that we can learn some things from you as well. And guys, go check out their podcast. I'm telling you, it's worth it. And if they're in your area doing a workshop, please go. I promise you will not regret it. And if you can do that cruise, that sounds like a lot of fun. I have to talk to Caleb about that one because we've done the his shoes, her shoes too. Actually, we had done that first before we'd met you guys,
Right.
and they're phenomenal as well too. So
They are.
highly recommend the cruise for sure.
Yes. Yes. So this year, well, 2025 is Alaska. We've done several in Mexico. They're a little, we're able to, those are a little shorter, maybe
Okay.
a little more affordable for people. So if you're thinking, oh, Alaska's not in the budget, just keep watching because the next year we may go back to Mexico. So,
Okay. We will. We'll do that.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank y'all for joining to the Her podcast. And I hope you have been, hope this has been helpful and encouraging. And I hope you're able to reflect on where you are with your walk with God. Thanks for joining.